Hello, hello, and welcome back to Retrieving Sanity with your host Keegan. And today we have our co-host Simba.
Sombrero.
Sombrero. Okay, so Simba, what is our topic for today?
Our topic today is the topic that we have discussed. It's a very interesting topic.
Could you please elaborate for the audience that don't know what the topic is?
Okay, for those of you with difficulty reading titles, I'm kidding. Heartbreak and what is closure?
What is closure?
Do we need closure?
Can we get closure?
Yes.
But no, seriously. Okay, so what is closure to you?
oh, easy, easy. So closure is like when
Easy.
you break an arm and you get a cast and you get it cut off and you're free.
Simba, that is not closure. I'm pretty sure that's more like casting off.
No, when you get the cast cut off.
No, like that's casting off. Kind of like whenever you're on a ship and it's like cast away, except it's your cast, it's coming off.
Yeah,
I
but that's
think
like that's like closure.
no, closure is like if you're like if you just got a surgery and you have this deep wound, right? And then you get sutured and then you get closure because it's an open festering wound. Well, it's not festering yet, but it gets there if you don't get closure, right?
That could be a process of closure.
Oh, a process of closure. I like that.
Yeah,
Let's
because
explore that.
closure. Okay, so closure for me would be like the release, like the freedom. I guess
Mm-hmm.
it's a double edged sword. The like the final cut,
Mm-hmm.
but like the next step is like the freeing.
I think the next step is like iodine or salt. It hurts because otherwise, if you don't get that hurt part, then it's like that open wound. If you don't clean it out, it's just going to get worse, right?
Uh Not necessarily. Depends on how tough you are. Your immune system.
I don't think that that's how closure works. Because if you close up the wound and there's still an infection, you still get an infection, and guess what? It's not good.
Okay. Are we talking about physical closure, emotional closure?
Simba, don't we know we talk in metaphors here? Metaphorically.
So theoretically, if I had a wound, I would heal fast.
Oh no.
I'm Mexican. It's in my blood.
Anyways,
Mexicans.
anyways, anyways, before we get thrown off the radio and Facebook. Now, so closure is essentially like you said, it's a process. So what would that process necessarily entail? Because first you have to get the wound, right? So
Right.
that's the heartbreak. So closure, you said it's that final cut. So whenever you say that, it makes me think of that tie that people have with each other without even realizing it that they have a tie. It's just you have that little energetic bond, and that closure is the last little cut of that to where you're free from it. But at the same time, I don't think that is the entirety of closure. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because I was thinking of a couple of scenarios in my own personal life, and I was like, you know, actually, I got closure long after, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And there's some things that I don't feel I have closure on that have long gone past. And there's some things that I got closure on before the last cut, you know?
Mm. So, what's something? What is one of the things that you wish you got closure on, or what's one of the things that you have closure on?
My dad passing.
Mm.
But I think I got closure on that the day he came and told me that the doctor said there was nothing left, you know?
Mm.
Because at that point there was no more like treatment, no more not looking forward, but no more expected like I don't know, the treatments were really rough to watch. I couldn't watch, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So that wasn't just tormenting to him, but like emotionally damaged to me. And I can imagine my stepmom who was there with him every single time. Like to me, it was just kind of one of those things of like, all right, the battle's lost and it is what it is, you know? I don't know.
No
It's
more.
one of those times where I accepted the bad news for what it was and just enjoyed what was left.
I feel you. Sorry again about your father, man. I know that's not easy.
But okay, so even in that sense, it was closure from like trying to prove to him that I could, like I don't. There's nothing to prove to him anymore. Like he's a
Oh.
beacon of hope and like inspiring voice in me, but
Mm-hmm.
and it's not like I'm trying to live a better life for him or to prove to him that I can be a worthy son or like I'm not
Mm-hmm.
trying my hardest at jobs or whatever to just satisfy what I want, what I would want my father want me to be.
Mm-hmm.
You
You're
know,
trying to live up to a
live out to
expectation.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I know how hard that is. So I can only imagine how freeing that kind of is. I know for myself, I've had something similar, uh, kind of like through working steps and working on inner healing of not having to live up to expectations of other people. But I can only imagine what that final one is kind of like, because like that must have been pretty hard hitting those still in the moment. Like,
Yeah.
did that one take a little bit for it to sink in and actually you realize that, oh hey, like I don't have to be someone that I'm not entirely, but I'm also not? Or did it just hit you like a freight train, just like I don't have to be that version of me that doesn't exist?
It hit me weird and it hit me all at once because right when he gave me the news, I wasn't the best version of me. Of course, I was still in active addiction. And honestly, I remember just throwing my hands up in the air and I was like, this is who I am right now.
Mm,
I
yeah.
was like, honestly, like, I didn't even try to get clean because, especially like with him passing, I knew shit was not, it was not going to be fun, you know?
Yeah. um so how did you, was that necessarily the closure all the way through, or was that just a part of the closure that you got?
The process of it starting really, I,
Okay.
I think that really the driving force was kind of like, so after the funeral, all my siblings, we just like dispersed. Like nobody, we didn't like. I was expecting us to like get together as a family or reminisce with dad, but it's like right after his burial, we were all just kind of went our separate ways, and that was kind of like the closure of like, man, this is it. Like, you know,
Yeah, not a whole lot like to do, kind of like uh whenever someone's getting treatment and it's not really working, and it's kind of like it hurts more to have that hope that it's not really there.
yeah,
And so I can imagine that that finally being over is another form of closure that you could get to. I also know that whenever loved ones pass it, well, they're not hurting anymore. That's a big one. So, what would the next step in your closure on that look like? Um, Living amends of sorts?
living amends to, yeah, I think, and that's the one thing recovery introduced to me is like living amends because I
Mm,
said whenever he was passing away and especially when he passed away I was like this is who I am right now, like I'm an addict, but I didn't like that feeling. Just because I accepted that's who I was doesn't mean like I was proud of that,
mm-hmm.
but it really made me feel like that's not who I want to be, even though I still didn't get into recovery or didn't even think about recovery until Chris's passing.
Mm,
That's whenever it was like, oh, this is a problem
yeah.
big time.
So, would you also consider that a form of heartache or heartbreak that you went through?
Heartache.
Yes and
Yeah,
no.
yeah,
Heartache. So here's a question: what's the difference between heartache and heartbreak? Because for me, it's kind of like heartache is the longing of wanting something or someone, right? And not being able to achieve it and not being able to get it and like hold it and embrace it. While heartbreak is having had it and now it's ripped away from you.
yeah. Okay, yeah. Yeah, okay. I guess even relating that to the situation with my dad, there
Mm-hmm.
was a heartache going through the treatment,
Mm-hmm.
thinking like, is this gonna work? Because when he got diagnosed, he was at stage 4 pancreatic cancer.
Mm-hmm.
So initially, there was a not even a 50-50 chance. There was just like it'll be a miracle if it
Yeah.
works. But it was just the heartache of like watching it, but then the heartbreak was finding out where he was at.
Mm-hmm.
Because I
So,
remember when he first told us, or when he first told me, I was like, "This is not going to end good," you know.
mm-hmm. And I don't really think it ends well whenever cancer is involved. So I think nowadays a lot of people, thankfully, medicine has gotten really far, but at the same time, it's not perfect.
Yeah.
And I think that hope that someone will get better is a form of heartache.
Oh
Um,
my god, man. Because it's almost dissatisfying. Like towards the end, literally the last when he told me that there was nothing left, I was like, that was relieving to know that
mm-hmm,
he wasn't gonna have to go through chemo and radiation anymore.
mm-hmm.
Because from April when he told us to August, it was just horrible.
Oh wow,
You know, and it
that's
was
not.
horrible. That's why when families when they stick together with cancer, or they're like the loved one who's there with them throughout the treatments, bro, that my like, how can you watch that? You know?
Mm-hmm. And I don't think it's easy, but I mean that's the whole point of love, right? Whether it's heartache or heartbreak, it hurts, but it's because you love them or you love whatever it is. Um, and I think um, a lot of people will turn to substances to use as a band-aid for heartache and or breaks. But that's not that's not closure, right? It's just a symptom. Because I know I used alcohol and other drugs like a lot to sit there and just cover up the not getting closure about many things. And it never really ended well because, 10 years later, I found myself at Mena Nehemiah, Dallas and South Rehab. I mean, a rehab in South Dallas. And
A
if you're
what?
like a rehab in South Dallas,
Wait,
and
I didn't hear you.
if you're like me and you're not from South Dallas or Dallas in general, stay away because it is not a pretty neighborhood. But yeah, no, like not to detract from your father's passing or anything like that, or hardships, but I can't imagine having watched that and that heartache that whole time, which leads me to the question of whenever he finally did pass, was it more like a heartbreak and relief at the same time, or did that come in a process in its own too?
it came in a process days after. Whenever
Mm,
he initially passed away, it was honestly like it was one of those like finally. But it's because like me and him had already had like our private moments, our talks, our conversations of like sorries and like thank yous, and I wish things could have been better. You know, like we'd already gone through that. But
mm,
the reason I say finally is because my dad was like there for me when he shouldn't have been there. He was an
mm,
enabler. He kept me alive, really, but it honestly was like we already had we lived our sorries, you know, because
mm,
he wasn't part of my life for a good part of my life, but in the older young adult years, he was like there for me, nobody, you know.
yeah.
So like he didn't have much to apologize for. It was just one of those things where um I just wish things like we weren't chosen for this. I wish cancer wouldn't have like tormented my family, but it did.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, it probably was for the best, because
Yeah.
I don't think I would have seen the way my life was going without it. I guess I saw the opportunity of growth in the situation as soon as he told me, you know?
And that's a hard one to seize the opportunity for growth, especially in the moment at the very beginning, because a lot of people sit there in denial the first stage of grief. And I mean, denial is a hard, heavy hitter, and it can be one of those things that people never even get over. And I
Yeah.
think that's one thing that stops people from getting to closure is because they don't go through the grieving process that's so important whenever it comes to heartache and heartbreak. And so, like with cancer and your father, it's there was nothing you could do about it. And I think what sucks for a lot of people, like myself included, is that the heartbreak can be uh, avoided in a sense. Does that make sense?
Like you
Because,
can just move on from it and
well, maybe not so much that you can move on from it, but maybe there was something you could have done in the relationship to stop a heartbreak. Maybe there was something that you could have done to actually change the outcome. But at the same time, that goes into destiny. Was it destined to happen? Oh man, there was this TikTok that I saw, and this lady was like, "Twin flames are awesome, but they're not." And I was like, "Explain." And she was like, "Because you come and you like hit each other, right? And your twin flame or whatever comes and hits it just the right spot to where like they push you into the right direction and they're gone again." And
What?
yeah, and I was like, "Oh no." And as soon as I was done watching that TikTok, I was like, I know exactly what situation this is in my life and I hate it. I was just like, God. I was like, God's. And I was just like, no. But then that's the thing is that there's that debate like soulmate versus twin flame. And like, I'm not sure which one's which at one point or another because they also both have the same mission in the end is to help heal us.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and so the heartbreak, I think, comes from a lot of regret in sense. Because if you don't have the regret, then you can move on, like you were saying. But if you have that regret, you don't necessarily get that closure, or you don't get the answers that you were. Does that make sense?
yeah. Because like I think about last year when we were roommates.
Mm-hmm. That was
That
only
house.
last year.
Well, I guess now it would have been a little
Almost
bit
two
longer.
years.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I think about that situation, and um, I don't feel like I got closure from that. To be honest, I feel like I just had to decide
Mm.
and tell myself like I didn't need the closure, you know, like because I could have done things to have a different outcome. I could have been so passive in the fucking situation and been like, "Oh, it's okay. You know, you can do this to me. You can hurt me. You can do whatever. No rules, you know?
Yeah.
And we're going to be together forever and whatever." But at a certain point I couldn't do that, and that's why I coped with drugs because I was like I couldn't handle that decision. And I couldn't handle that I was allowed myself to be in a situation that much, that long.
Ooh, you allowed yourself that situation.
Bro, because I don't know if you remember, but remember from like the
I
very beginning,
remember.
yeah,
Yeah.
where I
I
was like,
remember.
yeah, and
And
I knew it from the beginning that
it
it
was not
wasn't,
going to go well.
it was not gonna go well. I knew it, but I still like I thought you did what you do when you like someone, you just try to fit into their life. But it's like that situation where you said I was more so trying to do this, push him in my direction
Mm-hmm.
versus the direction he needed to go for life, for
Yeah.
him to grow, you know?
Yeah.
But then at
Eh,
the same, like once I had enough of it, I had to be like, I just got to ricochet. I
yeah.
can't.
I was about to say, it sounds like instead, you were trying to go this way, and he pushed back hard enough, and it just could made you careen off course really hard, and then you had to find your soulmate, Nehemiah.
What?
Just,
Whoa,
I'm
whoa,
joking. I'm
whoa,
joking.
whoa, whoa! This is my Bible. There are many.
You like it, but this one is
This one is
mine.
mine,
Bible is
dude.
my friend. It is my life.
Honestly, like I love going back to that place when I have the time. I want to get to a point where like I want to ask them if I can like come and have lunch with like X amount of people every now and then just to get to know them because
Mm-hmm.
there's something to teach, you know, having
Mm-hmm.
gone twice and letting them know, like, bro, first time I came in, I did nothing but gripe, think this wasn't gonna work, get myself kicked out almost every 2 weeks. But the second time around, I realized I called for help, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like it was one of those like I know I need the help. I know what to expect and I was willing.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that was the thing is I was willing to work. You know how at the end of meetings they say it works if you work it.
Mm-hmm.
I was willing to work it the second time,
Yeah.
and I hope that I can find some way to be inspiring to the newcomers and be like,
Mm-hmm.
yo, bro, like I was in your shoes where it was fun to just come in here and play and like
Mm-hmm.
pretend, and I didn't even know I was pretending until I found myself down the same road. a year after.
Yeah. And I think that there's something to be said there too. First of all, you were willing, but then you were broken enough.
That part.
It, yeah, it's kind of like whenever you have a broken bone and it doesn't get set in the cast right, and then like it doesn't even get set in a cast. It just heals itself, and then the only way to really fix it is to break it again, reset it, and then like as it's setting, then cast it up, and then you get the closure with the cast coming off.
I was gonna say it, but I was like, all right, I'm gonna let him have it.
Thanks. All credit goes to Simba.
Because no, like seriously, dude, like it was almost like a closure to the active addiction me. From this point
Ooh.
on, I understand addiction for me is a choice.
Uh-huh.
If I
Yeah.
choose to go back that road, you know, back then I honestly I felt like it was my destiny. I'm the
Mm-hmm.
black sheep, um, the gay kid.
Mexican.
Yeah, you know, like I labeled all these things, and I was just like, there was nowhere else to turn. I wanted to fit
Mm-hmm.
in. I wanted, you know, and that was the only venue for me at the time. I thought, you
Mm-hmm.
know, but now with like recovery and just expanding recovery, joining Oxford House, joining different groups, joining CMA, I never would have
Mm-hmm.
thought life in recovery would have been this kind of nice.
Fun, even.
Yeah.
And I said Mexican. I should have said brown because you said black sheep, and you're so never mind. I'm just going to shut up now. Anyways, but no,
You're
you're
white.
right.
You can't say that.
No, I'm Irish. I don't. I am translucent. No, there is a lot of stuff right there because, yeah, coming back around that second time, like I can only imagine what it was like for you because I came in that broken and
Yeah.
willing because I was like, yeah, this is like life or death. Literally, it was like just 2 weeks before I was laying in a hospital bed tied up because I was punching people that were tying me to the bed for the betterment of my health, which kind of makes me think like how many other people did I theoretically or metaphorically punch that were just trying to help me. But trying to get to that point of willingness to be broken and reshaped is something all on its own, which we definitely need to have its own episode about. But I want to touch on the now that everything's healed, now that the bone has set and you got that closure with the cast coming off, now you get to run around again. Now you get to go play sports. Now you get to go interact with people. You get to go outside the fence, you know?
Outside the fence.
And that's whenever the demons come back. But
We've been
no,
waiting for you.
doing push-ups in the parking lot.
Yes, I was just thinking of Command Sergeant Major saying that.
Yeah. Oh man, I want to go see Command Sergeant Major so bad. I actually thought about him earlier today, and I was like, man, I got so much to owe to that guy because he reinstilled a lot of that self-discipline that I had lost, and like he reminds me a lot of my dad. Like him and Major Woods were the culmination of my dad as my perception of him growing up, and that's part of the reason why. Oh, I forgot we're not supposed to name drop on here. Oh no.
So
Okay.
okay, but there's something to build from that because
Yeah.
a lot of people share similar feelings to him, and I did. My first go
Mhm.
around, I did not like his approach. I did not like his way of teaching or
He's a hard ass for a
inspiring.
reason.
Yeah, but when I came back, I hid from him because I already
Mm.
knew what he was trying to teach me. I chose not to listen the first time, so that's why I hid from him. But he came up bold to me. He's like, just looked at me. He's like, "Do you now understand?" And I was like, "Yes." You know, and then he put me in my place because I got put on a behavior contract. Soon as we had that conversation, I got called into my counselor's office, and I was put on a
Oh.
behavior contract. I hadn't even done anything. I hadn't even been there like 48 hours, but I needed that. You know,
Yeah.
I needed that because, and so I even had this conversation with my boss when I showed up to my job in a very inappropriate way. We had a powwow days afterward, and she was like,
Mm.
she understood where I was coming from, what I was going through. She also inspired me by telling me how she saw me growing into the company. But in that same
Mm.
conversation, she told me, "You will be fired. I will
Yeah.
like let you go." You know, so she gave me
Mm.
the three things that moved my life. Same
Mm-hmm.
with him from In and Nehemiah.
Mm-hmm.
He made sure that I got what I needed, but he also put me in my place and was just like, if you
Mm-hmm.
even if you act the way like you did last time, this isn't working for you, and we have
Mm-hmm.
no place for you to poison, really, because you're in a group of people who are watching each other. What
And
is Jim had said it one time. He's like, an addict affects. There was a person,
uh-huh.
Mr. E,
That
who
works.
who said every addict affects 17 people around them.
Mm-hmm.
So imagine how many people you affect, inspire, or even take down with you.
Mm-hmm.
Being in a program where everyone's trying to help themselves, you change their life. You know, I mean, and I honestly, I even talked about that in counseling in my last session. She's like, "What are your
Mm-hmm.
struggles?" I'm like, "My struggle is not making this perfect version of me that I'm trying
Mm-hmm.
to fit so that like I can like doing basically putting on a mold, a mask
Yeah.
every morning to be this inspiring person for around me. I can do the right thing and everyone's going to see the wrong version of me, you know?"
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You
And
can't
so yeah, and I don't want to make an expectation that I think I can inspire the whole world, you know? I honestly I just have to do what I know is right, and accountability and discipline go a
Yeah.
long way.
Oh yeah, they do.
45
And
degree angles.
45-degree angles, back straight, shoulders apart, face forward. Your face does not move, your head does not move. If anything moves on you, it'll only be your eyes. And then
Down, up,
up. Oh
down,
god.
up.
Up. Biblical principle number 1.
Yes. Okay, hold on.
Oh, you
Biblical
don't
principle
remember?
number
Number
one:
1. We believe that
that
every
every
man
man must face the truth with the
with the
understanding
understanding that
that
truthfulness
truthfulness is the
is the
foundation
foundation
for
for
his
his
recovery
recovery.
as a unit.
As a unit. Um but no, there's something beautiful in what you were saying about all of that, because you were broken enough, right? And you were vulnerable enough, especially at work. But with your work and with him, they put the ball in your court to say, "Do you want your closure?" No,
Bro,
like, yeah, because think about it, like, you don't get closure if you just sit there and wait for it. You have to want it. You have to go and get it. And that's another thing, is that closure is not just a noun, it's an action word. It is closing. It's the closing of. And you have to be able to sit there and say, I want this closure. I want things to be right. I want it to be like okay in my head. I
yeah.
want it to be okay in my heart. So you have to go and say, I'm broken enough. I hate this. And I want to be whole. I want this to be good. I want to be better. And if you're not willing to do any of those, then you're sitting and waiting for closure. And I don't really think that that's how it goes.
Yeah, I'm glad you just said that because like the most heartache ever in life for me was that
Mm-hmm.
indecision. What do I want to do? You know?
Yeah. Yep.
Because
Yep. Yep.
I mean, there were those days that I was when we were living in Oxford House
Mm-hmm.
where I'm like, literally, okay, so the day that I got that I checked myself into treatment wasn't Monday, it was a Tuesday, but I
Yep.
got paid that next Wednesday. So I told myself, I'm like, what do you want to do? You just want to move Oxford houses and pretend like none of this ever happened and just
Mm-hmm.
think that I can do it on my own, or do I go like check in? Like, do I do what's
Mm-hmm.
right? You know? And I told
Yep.
myself, I'm like, I can't spend another day in this indecision. You know,
Yeah.
it'd already been too long. I knew where one road was going to take me. You
Yeah.
know, but I was also willing to give my all to this other one for once.
The one, the one where you had no idea where it went.
Yeah,
And I mean, and that's right. There is another testament on closure, because it takes a lot of strength to get closure, because it's not going to be easy. And it takes a lot of faith, because you may seek answers, but you may not get the answers that you're wanting.
I was just gonna say that you might never even get the closure you want. You might get the closure. You might not even see the closure. I didn't see the closure sometimes. You know?
So, yeah, so how do we go about getting closure if we can't get the answers that we want? What do we do? Because that was something that me and our therapist, had went over with me was, well, whenever we can't get closure, what do we do? And I was like, dude, I don't know. Like, I write a letter. And I mean, that's part of it. And it's kind of like a little step four right there is like writing out your grievances, what you're wanting from your closure, sitting there and trying to figure it all out. But at the same time, what do you do after that? And it's kind of like living amends
Yeah.
to an extent. But also at the same time, for me, for my living, for my closure that I can't get answers to, I have to be able to release and let go of that heartache and heartbreak, because otherwise I'm going to be holding on to something that no longer serves the purpose for me. And detaching and letting go of that is equally difficult, I think, as seeking closure whenever you have answers available to you.
Go.
No, 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 no. By all means, you.
Well, I was gonna say, like, sometimes you just gotta decide that what you're giving or the opportunity that was given is enough.
Ooh, ooh, I like that.
Because I read this thing that said sometimes the only way to get what you want is to try harder or want less. Sometimes I like
Oh,
with the situation last year when we were roommates.
uh
What
huh.
I wanted is my closure is like flowers at the door and be like, I'm so sorry and like blah blah. And the
Mm-hmm.
closure I got was nothing, you know. And so I had to realize the silence was enough because I
Mm,
guess we both didn't know how to communicate with one another, and both moving on was what I got. And now that's enough, you know. It was easier.
yeah. Damn, that one hit hard. Just less, want less,
I
or
mean,
just it's true. Um, uh, they said 2, 3. Oh man, like, and there's parts of me that like really miss Mon, because I've never really had fellowship like that except for like Boy Scouts and a high school marching band. Like, and so it helped me get a lot of closure for my high school self. Does that make
yeah,
sense? And so it was able to make me sit there and go like, this is what I was missing. It wasn't so much like, oh, like, yeah, I miss Victoria, my snare drum from marching band. I'm going to miss ever crap out of her because this is my snare drum. I had heartbreak whenever I graduated and I had to leave her behind, right? But shut up. It's a drum.
I'm laughing with you.
Yeah, yeah. But like whenever I was at Nehemiah, I was the first thing that I remember whenever I was out of quarantine, everyone was like, I love you, man. And I was like, right. And I was like, no, they genuinely are showing love. And I was like, these people don't even know me. And um like just throughout the journey of Nehemiah, I was just like the closure of being able to say, look, here's the hurt part to me, here they are. Like, I don't know what to do with it. Can someone help? And then people sitting there and helping pick up the pieces, or at least showing you, like, hey, bud, you missed one. There's just something magical to it. And I don't know what else. After going through it, I can't imagine a better place for me finding recovery. And I know some people disagree with that and disagree very heavily, but I don't think that they're broken and willing enough yet. But that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I think
So
it takes a certain level of
special.
desperation, especially for that treatment center, because I've been to multiple treatment centers doing presentations or just H&Is,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of them have very good success. Not, I can't say they're like, I, that.
No,
Let me
yeah,
restart that.
yeah, okay.
So they all have some stories that are very successful. You know, I just think it takes the certain type of desperation for any type of treatment center, but
Mm-hmm.
especially when you got to get up, you got to put on a uniform, you got to march, you got to do all these other different acts. It takes a different type of desperation to stay, but staying is the best.
It is the best part. And you said acts, and one of those things with acts is that after a certain point, if you're actually doing it and you mean it, it becomes part of you, right?
The other
And
day, I made my friend's bed with the 45-degree angles. He's like, "It looks nice." I was like, "Yeah, I had to do this every day."
every day. Like I'm sorry, the only time I've had to roll up underwear was for camping trips. And I was like, well, at least I remember how to do this.
I donated some
But
clothes right after treatment, and they were all like rolled up shirts and stuff. And they're like, "Man, you must really know." They were like, "You're in the military." I was like,
no.
"No."
I was in something else, but it's very similar. Very similar esque. Um, but yeah, that gift of desperation, I think that also leads back into closure because after enough heartbreak, enough heartache, you become broken. I became broken enough that I was like, I need to find a way to get this to just stop because it hurts and I'm tired of it. I'm ready for something else. I'm ready for the next chapter of my life. But I couldn't really do that whenever I was sitting there just like wallowing in self pity.
Yeah.
I had to be willing and act accordingly to go get closure. And I think a lot of people don't even realize that that's kind of what they're there for because that's also what a lot of the therapy was for. But a lot of people just don't like to cry. I've had to tell people like therapy isn't good unless you're crying
And
or you're really mad.
oh yeah, I had a couple of those sessions where um
Which one you
she's
couldn't find out if you were mad or angry? I mean, not mad or angry, if you were sad or angry.
oh no, I knew when I was angry. Everyone knew when I was angry. Everyone. I'm sitting out in the hallway
Well,
pissed off. I remember
at least
a
I didn't
staff
throw a shoe.
staff sergeant, or what's his name, first sergeant, asked me. He's like, because I went out there and sat outside because I was pissed. He's like, "So who's your counselor?" And I was like, "The same one that's it's been for the past 6 months." And he's like, he just walked away. He's like, "I'm not even gonna mess with this."
But see, and there's something right there too. He recognized that you were just running in circles,
Yeah.
and sometimes the only way to get out of that circle is to get yourself out of that circle. But sometimes people have to be like, hey, like, you can walk a straight line eventually, right? And of course, if you're running in circles for so long and you try to start walking in a straight line, you're not going to be very straight at the very get go. So you're going to stumble and you're going to fall.
With that same situation with first sergeant, he asked me the same question my counselor asked me when I went through the troubles the second time. She's like, "What do you want to do? Do you want to go? Or do you want to stay? Do you want to face whatever you're facing?" And she's like, "In your head, or do you just want to go?"
Mm-hmm.
And he asked me the same thing. He's like, "What do you want to do?" Because he's like, "We can let you go right now, and you can tell yourself this is enough. This is the closure you needed, or you can finish this through." But he's like, "I'm not gonna. If you don't want to talk about it, you don't want to deal with it. And what do you want to do? You know?
What
How
did
much?"
you want to do?
My response was, "I don't want to be part of this group anymore." And he's like, "So what does that mean?" But I think what I was telling myself is, I don't want to be this person anymore, and I don't know how not to be this person anymore. And right now, it's coming up, and I can't deal with it. Dude, doing a moral inventory on yourself is
Hard. Yeah, and man, like, I mean, that's why I'm going back through my step work because I need to clean house again. Like, what was it? Step 10 is the first maintenance step. It's the one where you're actively sweeping, and then as soon as you stop it, then everything just starts piling up, and you're just like, well, yeah, I got some stuff to work on.
Is that mine?
It's like, no, that was here whenever I got here, man. It couldn't be mine.
And then you realize some stuff isn't dust you can sweep; it's stains.
Oh, and now
I
you gotta
know.
live with it because you let it sit for so long.
Yes. Now you gotta put some more elbow grease in it.
And then maybe you just work on that one spot so hard, it's nice and shiny and perfect, and you look around and everything else is just not great compared to it. And so now you got to put that same amount of work into the rest of the house.
Bro, actually, that's actually kind of like what's going on with me right now. Is I figured out that one little spot that I'm like, okay, now it's squeaky clean, but now I look up and I'm like,
everything else is just
yep.
like mediocre.
I hate mediocre. You remember that?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Stamp,
I think
clap. Dude, we need to go.
We do, man.
We need to go.
Are we going to like just like drop in? Like that's what we should do. We should just like take a couple parachuting classes, and then have someone just like drop us off one day whenever they're going out for smoke break, and then we just like land in front of them and be like, "This is what you can do when you're sober."
Did somebody say Bible prayer? Left face.
Oh man. Did you ever get to do the they say in Nehemiah the coffee's always
they say in Nehemiah the coffee's mighty fine.
mighty
tastes
fine,
like
yeah.
Looks like dirty water. Tastes like
tastes
turpentine.
like turpentine. Yeah.
Yep.
I loved that one. The first time I heard it, the first time I heard that one, my dog ain't got no legs. And there was another one, I forget what it is right now, but hearing those just marching in time inside and Command Sergeant Major just sitting there saying those for the first time. I'm actually just marching and I'm just losing it. And he actually looked over and he's just laughing. And like he didn't sit there and yell at me, but I'm just sitting there just losing my crap just because I was like, oh my god, like the first sense of humor I've heard from this guy. And then watching him actually smile is like, dude, I don't know what. Either you get that evil grimace just like, or you get the one where it's like, this guy actually has a really good heart. Like what he does, dude, like I have so much respect for Command Sergeant Major.
Yeah.
Like it is crazy. And it brought closure in that sense too, that just because I lost my self-discipline doesn't mean I can't get it back.
You know, he brings a lot of closure to authority figures.
Yes.
In your mind, because he's very strict, he's very on you. But like whenever the second time I went around, we would have in our marching sessions, he would go off. Like he would stop us. You remember, chew us out.
Yeah.
But then when we got back to the compound, he would circle us up and he's like, I'm teaching you guys discipline. He would like lower his voice and he'd be like, I love y'all. Like I want the best for y'all. But he's like, discipline is the biggest part of recovery. You know, like he made it more home, really.
Yeah.
Like he brought it home. So he really like kind of just changed the way I see authority figures. Is I might not understand the process, but I'm understand what he's trying to teach. You know?
Yeah, he's very straightforward, which a lot of people hate authority figures because they're not straightforward. And then not only that, but he is a leader. He's not a boss. He is going to lead you into getting your self-discipline.
Yeah.
And like it can be difficult, but that's the thing is that he's not there to like hold your hand. He's there to push you. And sometimes whenever you don't want to get pushed, you stumble and you get mad because you don't get pushed like it's not like a gentle little tap, just like, hey, yeah, you can go now. It's more like a shove, and sometimes if you're not ready for that shove, if you're not ready for that push, you're going to fall and you're going to get angry if you're not ready for it.
Yeah, and you just made me realize, you know, me coming from emotional parent wounds, you know, what I was looking for was the let me walk you across the street, you know.
Oh,
yeah. That's not what I got.
No.
But at the same time, I had to realize what I did get was enough for me to learn, you know, the closure I needed, you know? Yeah.
And man, I think that's one thing that I need to work on right now is like what I got is enough. And because I may not ever get the answers that I want with the last relationship that just went through and everything, but at the same time, maybe I will in time. But
Yeah.
for now, to get that closure, I just have to say, well, this is what I got to work with, so it's going to have to be enough. And I thank you for that, because otherwise I probably would have been sitting there scratching my head the whole time, just like, what the hell do I do?
Yeah. I mean, it's honestly a difficult choice, and it takes time. But like, I don't know. Like, I had to tell myself with that previous situationship was like the not speaking and just ending it the way we did was enough.
Mm-hmm.
And it literally was until I decided that, and because I was talking to it with coworkers, and they were the ones who brought it up to me. They're like, "Well, what do you want to do? Do you want to
Mm-hmm.
keep living in that hope of like it's gonna come back together, or do you want to tell yourself like it is what it is, and this is it? Like, is this enough for you?
Yeah.
You know?" Because I wasn't willing to roll the dice again. I, I honestly, at that moment, I didn't know what I wanted, and you just left. The store is
Welcome
now
back.
open.
Sorry, we had some technical difficulties.
He had some
I had some technical difficulties.
accountability, sir.
Accountability? What are you talking about, accountability? I don't know what that word is. That's not how you get closure. Is that how you get closure, though?
Accountability for your own side.
Ooh, that's a good one. You want to
Yeah.
expand on that?
Okay, so like when I ended that situationship, I told him I was just like, I don't.
Relationship.
Ooh, thank you, Command Sergeant Major.
Yes, sir.
When I told him that was it. I didn't want to be in contact or be friends. That had to be enough. It wasn't enough till like months later.
Yeah.
But once I was done with the heartache and was like, I think I've had enough.
Yeah. Um, Accountability on your own end. See, I think that that's what's breaking me up so much about my own end is I realized how much of a dick I was actually being by not pulling the plug earlier. You know,
Yeah.
just because now I realize that it was essentially dangling someone along, and like that's just not fair. It's not cool, and I screwed up, and that's all I can say is that I screwed up, and while it sucks, but at least I can get a lesson from that. And I think that's where my closure is going to come into play, is learning something from it and applying it to the next one. But man, so how did we end up tying Minnie and Maya all the way back to closure and heartbreak?
Because living the way we were living was a heartbreak, and Nehemiah offered us
Ooh.
a road to closure.
A road to closure, not closure itself.
Yeah, not close because it Colonel used to say, he's like, Nehemiah's not going to keep you sober.
No,
Nehemiah's
it's
not going to
not.
save you. You know?
Nope. It goes back to accountability.
Yep.
It's a
And
circle.
it goes back to what Major said to me. Do you now understand? Yes.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Sir.
My biblical Bible. Never mind. I'm being rude now. Or I'm being funny. I'm reminiscent.
Yeah. Man, you know, he was always waiting for me to show up. I never showed up.
He had to get his closure. This is what we got.
Yeah, because our therapist, she had been talking to me, and she was like, "He's just waiting for you to show up." I was like, "What does that even mean? I don't know this term. Show up." He's waiting for you to blow up and like have your moment, and I was like, "Well, what moment?" And she was like, "Yeah, you like getting out of your shell and actually talking to people and being active with everyone. That's you showing up." And I was like, "Yeah." And so she was like, "So he's not going to get that satisfaction now, is he?" And I was like, "Not for me."
Bro, you never did a fire circle, did you?
No, because that was after you went in your second time.
So in my fire circle, it was him, the director of no, yeah, biblical and what's it called, clinical department,
Oh yeah.
and the person who was in charge of retrack. what's it called? Recovery
Uh,
track. And he comes at me. He's like, "So what are you gonna do when that lady's on the train and offers you a glass of wine?" Me and my counselor looked at each other and we're like, "This, he knows, doesn't he?
yeah.
He
That's
knows she's not gonna bother me, right?" uh, it was one of those hilarious moments, but I knew where he was coming from because I don't think I ever told you this.
Oh, lay it on me.
Nah.
Wait, no. Does it have to be off air?
What do you mean?
Whatever you have to tell me, what is it?
No, it has to do back with living at Oxford House.
Ah,
So, do you remember
my
when
ice cream? Yes, I do remember my ice cream. Thank you very much.
you're gonna have to want less? You're gonna have to want less ice cream than what you wanted. Because if you only wanted a scoop, then you had enough.
I didn't even get a scoop. You said, "Can I have some?" I said, "Yeah, sure." And you ate the whole tub.
I had
don't know
enough.
Anyways, what were you saying?
Do you remember when the previous bus driver gave me all his belongings? Oh, no, no, no. I don't think you lived in the house yet.
You told me about that a little bit, though.
No, you had to have lived in the house because that was whenever I was going through. No, you didn't because I didn't have a roommate. That's why it happened. But
Oh,
I actually had relapsed that day.
ooh,
Yeah, because in that all that stuff, there was a bottle of wine.
oh. So it's like they were watching you the whole time.
Yes and no, because like I knew Jeff knew, but it was one of you know, how he was always like
Without saying it to your face.
without. Oh, I love it.
It's so underhanded and so not accountability.
I
It's
don't know.
underhanded. It's
Yeah,
underhanded is what it is.
yeah.
So that's his way of showing the horse the water, essentially.
Hey, there's some water over there. You know, if you're thirsty.
I'm just saying.
You sound a little parched. But yeah, dude. And I even especially because in a sense got away with it.
Quote unquote.
It made the door super easy for whenever I went downhill. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like and I already knew how to get away with it. Don't let Jeff see you. And
No names.
oh, don't let Mustache see you.
No, that's fair. And so, did that take away your accountability factor for your closure slash road to recovery? Or actually, what it sounds like is that it reopened the wound. It wasn't done healing yet.
There was obviously still cancer in the wound that had healed over it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know then, but I slowly started ripping it back up, putting over bandage, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And it really it did me the most damage, you know? Because one, not holding myself accountable allowed me to fall really into everything that happened
Mm-hmm.
past that day.
Yeah.
Were there
Well, I
good
mean,
moments? Yeah. Were there moments of like me stepping back into recovery? That's when I started to overcompensate in recovery. I started, you know, to actually try
ooh.
to do the right thing, but at the
Mm-hmm.
same time, what is it? You're only as sick as your secrets.
Ooh. And you had some sick secrets. Yeah.
So in my fire circle, I brought that up with a major, and it blew him away. He just was like dumbfounded, but I was like, bro, I'm laying it all the fuck out because like
We can't cuss. Wait, I'm joking.
but you know, like I just laid it all out for him. If you really want to know like what happened, this is what happened.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that I got away with it, or I thought I got away with it, or I got away with it from the people surrounding there,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't get away with it. It caused me to like it paved the road for me to fall down. The same similar road, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Paved me right back to where I started.
It's kind of like going down towards your old stomping grounds, as they like to call them. Except in this factor, it was in your mind because those hadn't healed all the way yet. And so whenever they were opened back up, you knew how to fix it, just like how I knew how to fix my heartache and heartbreak at one point. And all those other pains that I had, it was to drink because then it made everything go away. And then once things got worse, obviously I just didn't have enough. So I just needed more. So
I think the combination of the situation slip was
mm,
enough to put me over the edge,
mm,
and that combined with relapse was
mm,
enough to like be like, this is enough. You know, like this is enough. I don't think I could have handled something else in there. And I knew that when my boss gave me that conversation of like, if this happens again, like we'll terminate you. Because I liked where I worked. I liked what I was doing. But
mm,
hearing that, I knew I could not handle that heartbreak, you know?
yeah. And I mean, again, putting the ball back in your court, it had to be up to you. Just like it had to be up to each one of us that go to that clinic, that we have to have a certain gift of desperation. We have to be broken enough. We have to be willing. And then in the end, we eventually get closure if we do what we're supposed to do.
It works if
Because
you work it.
I was just about to say that. Oh, by the way, your insecurities are showing. Anyways, that's all the time we have. If you like what you hear and if you want to submit your story or if you want to be on Retrieving Sanity with Simba and I, all you have to do is go to facebook.com and find us on Retrieving Sanity or go to retrieving or just go to retrievingsanity.com and there you can find our contact information and get a hold of us from there. So, with that, until we see you next time, Shalom.
April 19th, Taylor Swift, The Poets Department, Torture. Bye.